Hi folks and welcome back to the channel. Lee here. So I've actually had like a little bit of a response to the video that I done yesterday about the driving lessons thing, and basically someone was asking me about a specific point that I made about how there's some subjects out there that maybe aren't catered to as well, like in the school environment, and they basically wanted to know a little bit about like what's my thoughts on like the traditional education system in general. So basically, like, I'm gonna try and break it down into like a few different things, right? But I suppose I should start by telling you a little bit about myself, about how I done in school, and basically like, my history with education, I suppose. So if I made a scale of like how well did you do in school, and so if we go like 1 to 10, with 1 being like you left school with no qualifications whatsoever, and 10 is like you left school with like 7 hires, 3 advanced hires, straight A's, you done amazing in all of your exams, stuff like that, then I'd probably sit somewhere like maybe a 6 or maybe a 7 at a push. I get 5 hires, I get 3 B's and 2 C's, I believe. All kind of like science, computing type subjects. So I done okay in school, but I was a decidedly sort of like B grade student, I suppose you could say. I felt like I worked quite hard. I definitely took school quite seriously when I was there. And after that, I went to university. I went to UWS in Paisley. I done chemistry for 3 years, and after that, I went into fourth year. I was going to do my honours year, but for reasons that I'll probably discuss more in later videos, ended up kind of leaving quite quickly once I started fourth year. And then I ended up like with a job in employment. It's the job I do just now. It's in pharmacy, so I've only had the one job. But so yeah, that's a bit of kind of like a brief history of like where I am in like the education spectrum, I suppose you could say. Now, my feelings on the way education is done just now, like, I've kind of like changed quite a bit over the years. So I used to kind of be like, you know, probably a lot more supportive of the way education is done, like back when I was in it, to what I'm like now. And what's the best way I could describe this? Like, obviously, you get a lot of people that talk about how like you know you're in university, but then once you leave university, you come into the real world. And I'm not going to pretend to be like some sort of expert, like lecturing people about what the real world's like, because I was in university until like 2.5 years ago. So I mean, I've only been in a job for a couple of years, but it's given me a little bit of experience, and it's given me a little bit of a different perspective on certain things. So what I would say is there's some subjects that are well catered to in school, and then there's others that I think are definitely not so well catered to. I'm gonna try and see if I can dim this a little bit. Is that gonna work? Yeah, let's try that. Just messing about with the lighting there. So yeah, so I think like if you're gonna do like a science or engineering subject, I think like heartbreaking as it might be, the only way you're going to be able to do that is through like university, because a lot of high level science and engineering jobs are going to require like a degree, whether it be like a bachelor's degree, or some of them might even want like as far as like a master's degree. Um, Obviously, like there's also like doctorate, and you can become like a researcher and stuff like that. And to be fair, that sounds pretty cool. But it's a lot of time, it's a lot of work, I imagine. So you would need to be really passionate about a single subject, which I'm really passionate about a lot of subjects. I'm one of those people that like you can get me interested in pretty much anything if you sit down and talk to me about it. I've talked about that in previous videos. But so then look, you've got like your artistic subjects, you know, like you love art, you love languages, you love music, you love even some like computing subjects, I would say, like games design, website design, graphic design. And I think these are subjects that you don't really need to go to university for. I mean, I think there'll be people out there that benefit from going to university. I don't want to like, you know, pick on anyone because they've decided to, you know, take that up as a university subject. You know, like there's definite benefits to that. But I think like even, you know, a couple of videos ago I was talking about how I'd taken up a bit of like HTML and CSS kind of web design, and like through doing that for a few weeks, there was a few weeks where I was absolutely obsessed with it and hooked with it, and I was literally just go to work, come home, and work on my websites, and like, you know, within a few weeks, I'd built a couple of really quite nice looking websites. I'll actually link them in the description below so you can have a little look at them. But like, it was one of those kind of like addictions of mine for a few weeks, and you know, I've still been doing it a little bit, but at a kind of slower pace because you know I realise it's probably a little bit unhealthy to kind of just sit at your computer, you know, for hours and hours and hours on end and just sitting, you know, doing anything on a computer basically. Like, you know, you need to get out in the fresh air. But yeah, so like definitely like the more kind of creative subjects, I would say, you know, you don't really, I wouldn't say you need university. Like, it's my opinion that those things are better catered to, like, if you're just going to do them yourself. Because I think a lot of it as well is more about, like, building your own, like, portfolio. And I don't think that's something you can do, like, very well in university. Like, because I think university, like, they push a certain path and you kind of need to go down that. And in some ways, like, it's good because you'll have that definite kind of structure to build from, but at the same time, it means you kind of need to like follow the lead of someone else rather than doing your own thing. Um, and also, like, I'm one of those people, I feel like I can get interested in something and really enjoy doing something. I'm gonna open the window a little bit because it's getting quite stuffy, but like, in fact, it's quite windy and loud, so right. Sorry for that wee interruption. But yeah, so like what I would say is like my overall opinion on education is obviously you need it, like you need school, like you need something, you need some sort of structure by which to like, you know, teach people the basics of like English and maths and, you know, basic stuff about science and, you know, how to read and write and stuff like that, you know, like basic stuff that everybody needs. But I think in a lot of ways it could be a bit more modernized, like, and I think there's ways to like, there's better ways to inspire people as well to take up certain subjects, and I feel like a lot of the stuff you do in school or even in university, like, you know, to put it kind of bluntly, like it's quite boring. Like, you know, like just I feel like even in university, like there's a definite kind of structure that they impose when you're learning something, even with a science subject or an engineering subject. And I feel like you could benefit a lot more if you had like less of a structure. Like, I think there needs to be like some sort of structure there. Like, I don't think you can just like, you can't just leave people with nothing because then they'll have no resources from which to learn. So, but I feel like if education became less of this kind of rigid, structured thing where you're just teaching people like blocks of information, if you gave like a very kind of basic structure, but then overall most of the work was like, stuff that the students themselves pursued, or, like, I'm not explaining this amazingly well, but like the way I feel, like, I suppose I'll frame it in the context of what I know, which is like science subjects. Say, like, they taught you like the very basics, right? But then it was mostly like project based sort of learning. So, like, you picked a problem to solve, and you were essentially just left to come up with a way to solve it. Um, I think it'd be much more useful. I think it'd be much more interesting. I know the stuff that I enjoyed most in university was the stuff that was like project based. So, like, we done a thing to do with like microplastics and on beaches, and we were given samples from someone else's research project, like from samples of sand from Irvine Beach, I believe, and it was Helensburgh Beach as well. And basically, apart from those samples and apart from like the basic knowledge you needed to, you know, do anything with the samples, you were basically left to collect your own data, run your own experiments, and, you know, obviously you were given the resources of like the lab as well and stuff like that. But I actually enjoyed that more than most of the other stuff I done in university, because they left you on your own, and it was like a real world problem, right? And I mean, come on, guys, it's 2020. Like, there's no shortage of real world problems that you know you could put brain power towards. Like, I mean, these are really smart people. Like, there's plenty of really smart people out there that you know could be solving problems, but instead, like, we're just putting them through this like formulaic degree format that, like, again, as I says, I get it. Like, I get you need a structure, but I feel like everything in school needs to be much more focused on like a individual interests, right? So, like, if somebody shows interest in a specific thing, then and they really enjoy doing that thing, they should be allowed to pursue that thing. And B, I think it should be a lot more kind of practical problem solving, because they actually reckon, and one of the YouTubers I've mentioned, Batman Dobbins, I keep mentioning him because I do think he's a fantastic channel, because he talks a lot about these sort of issues. But he done this long video about basically about school and how, like, I've lost track here, but like, yeah, so like basically how it needs to be much more sort of hands off, if you know what I mean. Like, it just needs to be where you give them you give the students resources and let them do their own thing. And also, like, this is the future we've got anyway, because technology is advancing so fast that the biggest measure of success, like the biggest factor in success, is going to be the ability to like learn a subject, then unlearn the subject and relearn another subject, because things are advancing so fast that they reckon that like each person in this generation is going to have like 5 jobs during their lifetime, and that's not by choice. That's just by they're going to get into a job, and then it's going to get automated away, so they're going to need to find another job, and that's kind of the scary reality. So it's really best to how teach people to love learning rather than just teaching them a bunch of information. So yeah, that's my basic thoughts on like modern education and how I think it could be a bit better. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked, leave a like. If you hated, leave a dislike. Leave a comment below if you've got any more thoughts. And if you really like the content, then please do consider subscribing. Bye, folks.